My name is Angela George, and I carry the traditional names Quanat and Sitsats Tanat. And I'm from the Squamish Nation, and my late father was from the St'alis First Nation in the Fraser Valley. And I married into and live and work in the Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I'm very happy and proud to be a part of this project.
Yeah, I'm home anywhere in Salish territory, which is quite vast. And I think the reason I really feel that way goes back to when I started looking at the culture and spirituality and how our people used the land. It's reflected in the weavings behind us here. So I really have that strong attachment to the land. And of course it provided us with our culture and spirituality, and of course our nutrition. And we got the water, we got the birds, we got the land animals.
So what makes this area home for me is knowing that our ancestors walked on this land and that our ancestors saved this land for us. They took care of it for us and knew that we were coming so many generations from the beginning of time. They knew we were going to be here, and they made sure that we had a place to be. And I feel like it's our responsibility to be here and to carry on those teachings to our grandchildren, our children and our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren. We have to think at least 7 generations down the road. So I feel like if I don't know about this land and learn about this land, how are we going to carry on our ancestors' teachings? So how do we honor them? So that's what makes me feel rooted to home.
Debra Sparrow. I'm from Musqueam, which is probably all of Vancouver the way we see it. And I am happy and I'm kind of blessed to have this opportunity to work with the organization that's organized all of us to work together. It's going to be it has been already an amazing journey. What does home mean to me? It means everything that we stand on, this earth, the Mother Earth. It means our areas that, trickle out way east to Chilliwack, to south where there was no border. We have relations on Vancouver Island. And this is home, and this weaving project that we're about to all share represents the foundation of our people.
My name is Doaa Jamal. I'm originally from Yemen, but I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. My family and I moved here 4 years ago. I think what makes me feel like home is when I walk around and things are familiar to me. I feel I have memories around the area, or when I see something, I remember a specific experience or situations.
My name is Michelle Sirois Silver. I was born on the north shore of the St. Lawrence River in Quebec. I currently live in Vancouver, and we're here in my studio today. And I work with textiles and primarily a rug making technique. When I think about home, I think about a place that is surrounded by nature. Also, when I think about home, I think about family. I think about friends. I also think about community.
My name's Livera. I'm a weaver. I was born in Sri Lanka and I left Sri Lanka as a baby, moved to the UK with my parents. And then when I was 10, we moved from London to Kelowna in the Okanagan. And I lived there till I moved to Vancouver to go to university, and I've lived here ever since. This neighborhood very much is my home. I've lived here since I moved to Vancouver over 30 years ago. My kids were both born here, and my husband was born in Vancouver, so this very much feels like my home.
I'm Shamina Senaratne, and I'm a textile artist here in Vancouver, interdisciplinary, so I do a number of different things. And this project I probably will be using fusing as one of my main techniques along with stitching. I was born in England, but I wouldn't have been born if it wasn't that my parents came from 2 different colonies of Britain, right? And they finished their education there. And then my sister and I were born in England. We came 43 years ago to to this part of Canada. And so we do feel like this is home. Rootedness has to do with, literally walking and seeing the same trees growing in my area for decades, really. Even the thing of planting a 1-year seedling at 10 years old in my parents' garden, and that Douglas fir growing, and it's a beautiful tree today. Like that's part of being from here, to just really have that time.
My name is Damian John, and I live in the little town of Weimar, BC. It's in southern interior of British Columbia, and I am part of this project as a graphic designer working with 2 of the textile artists there. So home for me, I guess, would be having spent quality time with both people and places enough so that it knows you and you know it, and there's a knowingness in home for me. Feel solid rootedness, I think, has to come from, for me anyways, it has to come from it extends beyond myself. Like it's not just me having been there, it's people before me too.
My name is Sholeh Mahliouji. I'm from Iran, and I worked as a graphic designer for this project, and I designed 2 praying rocks. Home to me is lived moment of self-growth, shared with the space, place that we live in, and also people we live with and we love. And also knowing about story of that place and people who have lived there. That makes the place home to me.
I'm Ruth Scheuing. I came to Canada in the 1970s, and I'm an artist and a weaver, and I came from Switzerland, and I have lived in Canada, all over Canada, in the last 50 years, I guess.
My name's Trinkwon. I was born in Toronto, and I live in Vancouver, and I'm a weaver. Yeah.
Spirituality to me is about believing that there's something more to live for, something more to be connected with, and kind of seeking alignment to the divine. That's something that is bigger than you, that's gonna be a purpose for life.
For me, spirituality is a day-to-day practice, and it manifests itself in many different ways. I start every day with readings. I write. I self-reflect. I think about what I'm going to do during the day. I think about how I want to move through the day. I think about, there's an expression about moving towards the light. So for me, that's part of my spiritual practice. I try to move through the world with kindness and compassion. I try to listen to what people are saying. And so for me, that really is a part of my spirituality, and it's a very important part of who I am.
I think we should all assimilate and be unique and different and share that. Is that romantic? You better believe it, and let's do it, because I'm for romance rather than war. So I think weaving seems to hopefully weave, there's that word hope, all of us together in a sacred way, that we can bring our beliefs that are similar together rather than apart. And I think I've quoted Maya Angelou so many times saying, we're as much different as we are alike.
Ruth designed this code that says paradise has many gates. So that's what that red coding is. So I think that's a really important piece. In fact, for me, it might be the most important, element in the whole design, because as I was doing my research on prayer rugs, they were saying that a lot of the symbols are memory aids, so that you remember what the reverence is, or what the prayer means, you know. And so for me, and that's the point that you put your head onto. And so to keep that in mind, that paradise has many gates, I think, again, it's that really resonant message that is important.
I try to be very open-minded and open, you know, in my heart and in my spirit. I think I like to come from a place of wanting to know and wanting to understand. And I find it very fascinating and intriguing to explore other spaces and other cultures and other ways of doing and other ways of being. I find that very fascinating because for me, I think what I'm genuinely looking for is a connection. I'm looking for a connection and the similarities. And I find it really fascinating to make those connections. And I feel like it reaffirms like who we are. It's like, oh, we practice our religion, we practice that. I mean, you know, our philosophies, our teachings, our ways of being are very similar. And I like to kind of come down to that place where we are all really the same as human beings. We're all the same, and we come from the same place and space in terms of spirituality. And I think that's what really fascinates me about exploring other spaces and other groups of people.
I often will go out into community and invite people to weave, many people to weave on a piece. And I say that, you know, each person makes their choices in terms of which yarns they choose and how they weave those yarns. But when we bring them all together, it creates something that's very unified. It's like a community. It's unified. Everybody brings their own abilities and their own perspective, but we create something that's bigger and better than what we each were doing on our own. So that also, to me, feels like part of the importance of weaving.
You have to constantly be in dialogue. I think that's really important. Communication has to really, you have to make a conscious commitment to really be able to communicate. And sometimes that's difficult because, you know, if you don't meet that often, or, you know, you don't have that accessibility to your collaborators, that can be frustrating. However, the benefits are kind of trump that for sure, because it's interesting how, you know, I always think of collaborative projects are most successful when they don't look like anyone's work that's involved in the collaboration. You know, that for me is a really good signal, because it means that not one single person's aesthetic or ideas are overpowering. So you're really creating something new, and I think that's really exciting and really the whole point of collaborating.
But I had to, like, throughout the whole process, I had to think about, is this weavable? Like, can she weave it? So this kind of like constant question, it really keeps you, it makes you think outside the box kind of thing, where you can actually like think of, like, let's say you stumbled upon something and you were like, is it weavable? And you're not, then you have to problem solve like right away. It can't be like, I'll just let it be, and then like we'll figure it out later. If you cannot figure it out later, it's either yes or no. But the benefits were like when Doaa sketched the concept, I really like learned a lot of things, like the chakras and stuff like that. And it was, the research part was really fun, because like this is where there's a lot of opportunities. You can do like kind of whatever speaks to you.
We got a beautiful experience in this project to meet each other and spend some time. Particularly for me, what was a really meaningful experience was sharing. Debra's Sparrow invited us to join her at the Musqueam village. And you know, she said, I'm here in my village that has been here for 3,000 years. And people can sort of, you can know that intellectually, but honestly, standing in the same place that people have lived and flourished continually for 3,000 years, not many places that you could actually touch that. And we're so unaware of it. It was a beautiful thing. And when she said, I was born here, I was educated here. And she brought the weaving tradition back with her friends and her family members there on that same territory. The collaboration took on a whole new level.
You know, the initial invitation for me, I was pleasantly surprised at being invited to be a part of it. I think, you know, the biggest message for me was going to visit the mosque, and I think the message of sharing and transparency, I think, was the biggest part of it for me. And just to be involved in the project is just perfect, fits into our goal in life as well, and it's like just wonderful how, you know, we see that the Spirit leads us. You know, it's been taking us, like, it's getting bigger and bigger, as it were.
So what I've learned in my interaction with other artists is how people respect each other. I love that part. I love seeing artists respect each other's work and understand how meaningful it is. Especially, you know, we're all doing the same work. We might not all be doing it for the same reason or have the same thoughts about it, but we can all inspire each other to keep on doing what we're doing, because it's not always an easy road. And, you know, we've talked to our mentors a lot about who most of them have passed away, but about carrying on. You know, how it's not easy to carry on in your community when you have such a, it's doing something different. It's unique. It's, you know, what we're doing. And, well, teaching other people as well. It's something different to do in the community. And I think having somebody to encourage, it makes all the difference in the world. It makes all the difference to everybody. You know, everybody in the world wants to be encouraged, no matter what you're doing, or, you know, where you're from, or what language you speak, or, you know, we all need encouragement. You know, we all need a smiling face, a nodding head, and, you know, just help each other out. And I think that's one of the things that I learned, that we can draw from each other. We can draw good energy from each other, you know, as long as we make sure and share that good energy, because we all have it.
But I'm really excited about something, and that is that I feel like it is possible that in our collaboration, our minds have been meeting while we've been sleeping in some other space, because there are some magical little things appearing for me in this final design that I don't know if Sholeh would have seen them, in fact, because we've talked about different things, and at the same time, what we've talked about, what we feel is in the design, and now a few weeks later, I feel like there's some other things to see.
They'd never worked together before. And with her, for me, what came up really strongly was an elk. I just said, okay, well, elk is showing up and has something to say in this space, so let's go with that. And so I worked with that particular essence for a while, and I would show Michelle one version of it, and she would reflect on it and give me some feedback, and we eventually came to fairly big presence with the elk in the design we have, and there's a really strong component of being seen and being heard in this particular piece.
What I see in this lattice work, and hopefully I'll be able to bring it out, are the scales of the salmon, the fish. And I believe that they are oriented in such a way that we'll get the feeling that we have a number of narratives. So we have the strength of the nettle as the verticals. You know, we have that there. You can see around the edges there are representation of those nettle leaves. You know, you see the branching, the way that the nettle plant branches. There's a little hint of the flowers at the top. But I think in the way that the lattice has been designed, you'll see the scales of the fish, and you'll see it's the salmon swimming upstream.
I think it's, first of all, it is an image of a gateway to prayer. And also what it is doing is showing foundationally how we're connected. And what I've tried to do is create something that brings together elements of two worlds of thought, but to show that really we're not that separate, you know, just to show the commonalities, to show the design elements and the similarities. Because I was looking at some of the traditional prayer rugs and seeing some patterns and designs that was very intriguing to me, because of the same patterns and designs that I've worked with and that I've been learning about in our Coast Salish weaving traditions. And I'm fascinated by those commonalities. Like, those are the same patterns that we have, that we use. And I'm curious to know. And I think that's kind of another element to this, is just to open that window and to look at and start to ask questions like, what does this mean? How is this relevant? And where do these design elements come from? Like, I'm very curious to know how you can, if you traced it back, who designed this initially, and what did it mean? And then taking it into modern day, you know, what can it mean for us? And what picture does it paint? What doors can this open, and what opportunities can be created from this in terms of collaboration? I think it's a very important discussion that we need to have. Mm-hmm.